Welcome everybody to Brazilian Kitchen. My name is Pedro and I'm your host for today's recipe. If you ever been to a farmer's market in Brazil, you probably know what I'm talking about. You're probably salivating in anticipation of what's coming next. If you've never been to a farmer's market in Brazil, don't worry, because today you're gonna learn how to make pastel or Brazilian empanadas, which is a deep fried dough with pretty much any filling that you can think of. For the dough, we're gonna need the following ingredients: 14 ounces or 400 grams of flour, 7 ounces or 200 milliliters of warm water, 1 teaspoon of salt, 1 tablespoon of vinegar, 1 tablespoon of cachaça, and 1 tablespoon of oil. We're gonna start by adding all the ingredients, but a quarter of flour into one bowl, and we're gonna mix it. We're gonna leave a quarter of flour for later because the dough is gonna get very dry and very hard to mix. Vinegar, salt, oil, cachaça. If you can't find cachaça, you can substitute for another spoon of vinegar. And finally, the warm water. I started mixing with a fork, but once everything is glued together, I'm gonna use my hands to mix it. Guys, the video was cut before we had the time to shoot it, but I mixed everything until it was just a single dough and I put it on the table with some flour on it. I'm starting to add flour little by little because then it's gonna be easier to incorporate everything into one, okay? This is the quarter of flour that I set apart in the beginning of the recipe. And we still have some of these things here, like these creaks, but this is totally normal. Now we're gonna set aside for 15 minutes and we're gonna cover in plastic so it won't dry out. "15 minutes later, we're gonna unwrap the dough and we're gonna cut it in half. So it will be easier for me because I have little space. Don't stretch the dough, cut it, because otherwise it will not be good. The part that I'm not gonna use right now, I'm gonna cover it back in plastic. We don't need more flour here because the dough is not sticky. Or if you don't have a rolling pin, you can also use a bottle of wine or something like that. Try to open your dough into a square shape because then it will be easier for you to cut the pastéis. This dough is very elastic, so every time I take it off the table, it shrinks a bit. So this is totally normal. Now that our dough is thin enough, we're gonna cut it so we can assemble our first pastéis. Try to cut the dough into one rectangle. I'm gonna cut this dough into 2 large pastéis, but everything else that is outside this rectangle here, I'm gonna use to make little pastéis. And you can also put it all back together and open everything again and can make more pastéis. Remember, every time you're not using the dough, you put it back into the plastic so it won't dry out. Then I'm gonna open this again. when you're doing the fillings, now it's the time to be creative. You can do pretty much whatever you want. So in Brazil, we have a wide variety. And you can also do sweets like dulce de leche, you can do banana with sugar, banana with cheese, shrimp, whatever you want. The sky's the limit. For the filling, we're gonna use some cheese and some leftovers ground beef. Guys, the filling cannot be hot, and don't put it around the edges because you're gonna need this real estate to close the pastel. So to close it, we're gonna wet our fingers with water just to glue all the dough together. When you're doing the fillings, try not to use a filling that is too wet because otherwise the dough might break. Guys, use your fingers to take all the air off because otherwise the pastel will risk opening when you're frying. After the pastel is ready, I'm gonna set it aside with a damp towel on it while I make the other pastéis. So the pastel will not dry out too much while we do everything else. Guys, you should be generous with the filling, but not too much because otherwise it will be hard to close the dough. But nobody wants to eat a pastel that has no filling, right? It's a hard balance that you have to find. You can press it on the other direction as well if you feel like the pastel is going to open. After it's all said and done, we have here 13 pieces of pastel. And we have from all different sizes and shapes. So here we have square, rectangle, and you can also do using a circle. So once you fold it, it's going to be a half circle. It will be the same shape as an empanada, if you guys have had that before. This dough was brought to Brazil by Japanese and Chinese people, but it was adapted to Brazilian tastes, and now we have all sorts of fillings that we Brazilians like. Up to this day, you can find Japanese and Chinese people in the farmers market. They are mostly the ones that do and sell this thing for us. We're gonna fry the pastéis on a deep pan. So I'm gonna use this one and I'm gonna put oil, and after that I'm gonna leave the pastéis here to dry. I'm gonna test the oil to see if it's hot enough. Exactly what we want it to happen. So when I put the dough inside, it should come up to the top real quick with a lot of bubbles. So we leave it this way for a little while, and then we have to turn it so the top will also fry. Look how beautiful this is, guys. So it's real quick. The oil is very hot, so we just leave it there for a little while and we take it off. Guys, you should really be careful because this pastel, it opened right here. So I didn't close it too well with the fork. So it probably has a lot of oil inside, but I'm gonna try it anyway because I do everything for you guys. Guys, when I put the dough in, I used my thermometer and it was around 230 degrees Celsius. And it's gonna be showing up right here how many Fahrenheit that is. Guys, we finally arrived to the best part. Not everything worked out. You see, I left the pastel this way so we will drip some of the oil, but it looks very good, so I'm gonna try. Let's open the pastel and see how the inside is. So cheesy, so gooey. Don't you guys love when it's like that? Oh my gosh. Just like you would have in the farmer's market back in Brazil. I'm gonna try the ground beef one. You know what I'm missing? Sugarcane juice. That's the way we have in Brazil. And it's just amazing. But, you know, just the pastel will do for now. It's not that oily now that I dripped it. It's very good actually. That was the pastel video. I hope you guys have liked it. If you did, don't forget to like the video, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, and don't forget to follow us on Instagram, alright? See you soon, stay safe, and até logo!